the longer you wait, you're just going to miss out on whatever would have happened, and you'll never know when to actually start. Because if you say, oh, I'm going to wait until I get my next certification, or I'm going to wait until, oh, this project is wrapped up, but then you might say, oh, I think I need to do a second project to really show that I know my stuff. And then where does it end? You don't know where it ends. So I say you just got to start with wherever you are. And I think in the context of this program, I think that's once you pass that first exam, you celebrate that, you celebrate your first certification, you get signed up for a project, and then you just start applying right then. I don't think there's any point in waiting. So I worked for the United States Postal Service for about almost 3 years exactly, actually, as a letter carrier. I explained this to one interviewer, and he asked a clarifying question. He was like, so you're the guy that actually goes like door to door, right? And I was like, yeah, I literally am the person who will walk up to your house and deliver your mail. That's my job. And I loved leading with that because I always felt that grabbed people's attention, because it's almost as far away as you can get to a technology oriented profession. It's a very physical, labor intensive, not super mentally challenging, not technically oriented job. So when I led with, oh yeah, I'm a mailman, that sort of got people's attention, and they were like, really? Like, how did you end up here? And that was a really great way to lean into the rest of my story and how I found this program. I found Salesforce through a podcast. Within 6 weeks of discovering this stuff, I got my first certification. And I was already on a project, and I think that really sort of led my story, and I felt like that current job was sort of my like hook, I think, or at least I like to think it was. So yeah, so that was the last thing I was doing before I landed this analyst role. One of the things I really liked about Salesforce and Trailhead was I found it very intuitive, and I am not particularly tech savvy. I've wanted to leave the post office for a while, and I've explored things like Code Academy, and explored like learning software engineering and like coding and stuff like that. And I found those things to be very overwhelming, very intimidating. And I found while I was learning Salesforce, none of those apprehensions. And that's both a testament to the intuitiveness of the software, and also to the great educational content that Salesforce puts out through Trailhead that makes the barrier to entry really, really low. So the combination of Trailhead and all the great educational material that's out there for actually learning the software itself, and the process that Talent Stacker puts out and Bradley puts out on, the pacing guide. These are about when you should be doing each step. If you have like 10 hours a week pretty much to put into learning the software, will get you there. The combination of all those things, I think, makes the barrier to entry very, very low, and pretty much anyone can make that work, I think. Some of my teammates will tell you, who I worked on a volunteer project with, I actually kept a very strict bedtime. My bedtime did not change throughout this. I was not compromising on bedtime. So it's funny, that was one of the questions you asked, was how late I stay up at night. But this was very much a evenings and days off adventure for me. I was still working full time. I was able to cut back my hours a little bit. So at the post office, you pretty much have two options. You are either on the overtime list, which means I want overtime and give me as much overtime as you can give me, or you can be off the overtime list, which means I don't want overtime, but you will still get overtime when they need you to work overtime because you don't have a choice. So for the first probably 5 weeks, I was actually still getting a lot of overtime. So I was actually working 6 days a week most weeks. And most of my studying was just happening in the evenings, and on my one day off, I would spend most of the day. So from my experience, what I specifically did was, as soon as I had my certification done, I signed up for the volunteer project. And that got started within about a week for me. And I did not wait I was very tempted to think to myself, oh, I should wait until I'm done with this project and I can really talk about the whole experience. I did not wait. I thought that would be now a productive use of my time. And I decided I'm just going to start doing this right now. And the worst case that happens is I get opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten, and I get the experience doing interviews and preparing for interviews. And some people might take it even further, and if they think they're getting close to getting their certification, they might feel that that's enough for them. So I guess it might depend on your personal comfort level. My impression was getting that first certification was enough to get my foot in the door without having a huge amount of other things on my resume. And that did end up being the case for one or two places. And I was not finished with the volunteer project while I was doing interviews for that specific company. And all I did was I just talked about where I was in the current project. So I had listed, these are all the different areas that my project is touching on in terms of Salesforce. So I know I'm going to be working on automation. I know I'm going to be working on security. I know I'm going to be working on reports and dashboards. And even if I hadn't completed all of those aspects of the project yet, because I had sort of a roadmap of where I was going with the project and with my team, I was still able to talk or speak to those aspects of it pretty effectively, I think. So I had 3 interviews in total with them. The first was just sort of an HR style phone interview where I talked to a current Salesforce analyst at Deloitte. He's been there for something like 5 years, so an experienced Salesforce professional. And that one was sort of the general, how would you handle these sorts of situations? Tell me about your background. Those were definitely more of the in my ballpark type questions I'm pretty familiar with and was well practiced on. So that obviously went really well. And then they scheduled the following 2 interviews back to back. It was less than a week later. It was like 5 days later. And those were 2 half-hour interviews back to back. The first interview was with a partner or the partner equivalent for a consulting firm. And that was kind of also similar. He asked a little bit more targeted questions about why I was specifically interested in consulting, what attracted me to that sort of role and that sort of environment. That one was a little intimidating because he was like the highest sort of ranking person I could possibly meet with, I think. And then the final interview immediately after that was a case study interview. So I was presented with a pretty basic business scenario, to be honest, where the scenario was like a company had multiple software systems that they were using based on geography. So in the United States, North American operations, they were using one system, and in the European operations, they're using another system. And I was the professional consultant that was coming in to help them sort of unify their systems and streamline their process. So I was asked a bunch of questions, mainly about how I would approach that situation, who would I talk to, what sort of questions would I be asking, what would my goals be. It was very big picture, critical thinking, thought process type questions. There really was very little actual Salesforce technical knowledge in any of the interviews, to be honest. It was a really quick turnaround. I ended up getting a call on a Wednesday evening from the recruiter saying that they were prepared to offer me a job and that I was probably going to receive an official offer letter on Friday, because they were still going to like review and approve the budget and all of that sort of stuff. So it was a very happy moment. It was kind of a frantic rush because I was so just in disbelief still. I was sort of waiting at any moment for something to go wrong. But nothing has gone wrong yet, because this has been a particularly fast journey for me when you put into perspective. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like a long time, to be honest. Like it's been a long 3 months of work, but like when I step back, it's like, wow, I did that in 3 months. That's crazy. But that's something I sort of leaned into, and when I would come across a question from an interviewer, or even when I was just sort of planning in my head, what would I say if this came up? I try to frame things not as, oh, this guy's only been doing this for a few months. He doesn't have a ton of hands-on experience. He doesn't have a lot of real-world experience. How much can you really learn in 3 months? I try my best to flip that on its head and to instead focus on, yeah, I've only been doing this for 3 months, but look what I've done in 3 months. And that's the type of work I could put in 3 months. Imagine what I would do. And that's part-time, evenings and weekends. So imagine what I would do if I was working full-time, year round for you guys. So I think that's something that other people shouldn't be afraid of and should lean into, and just frame it a little bit differently, because it's not that much of a step to go from, oh, this person doesn't have a lot of experience, to, oh, look at how much experience he got in this short period of time, and focus on what that shows about you and your work ethic and what you can bring to the table.